Are you trying hard but your faces look like zombies? We just want to obtain some decent results, right? Something like this perhaps. But wait, what the hell happened between this and this? My club colleague Tommaso Porro, the guy who painted this, gave us a live lesson at my place. About 8 hours of live face painting with a gold awarded master. And I want to give some of that to you. Let's jump right into it. First of all, good quality resin heads are much easier to paint because they are sculpted better. Those are from Hornet, but any brand will be fine. Nowadays, also the styrene heads are getting much better, and they usually come with good figures, so you can't go wrong with Miniart, Dragon and Tamiya. With this approach, no pre-shading is needed. All we need is a nice flat grey surface. I've had this Mr. Surfacer 1200 for a long time, and it's finally time to give it a try. It was thinned down with Mr. Leveling Thinner in a roughly 1:3 ratio. And oh my god, where was I until now? With this thinning ratio, all the problems are gone. Higher pressure, lower pressure, thin coats, or more heavy application. Do whatever you want, the result will be great in the end. Now for the colors. The brand is not important, but the tones are. I used Ammo because I have all 3 colors in my drawer. Burnt Sand for the base color, Basic Skin Tone for the highlights, and Burnt Brown Red for the shadows. If you will use Vallejo or AK 3rd generation, here is the list. And take exactly those, not similar ones. 4 more colors and we are done. Some white and black for the eyes, some dark brown for the eyebrows and red for the lips and the cheeks. This is it. Now for the gear. Water for thinning. Tap water is mostly fine, but if you're not sure, go for distilled water. A stiff palette with multiple wells. 9 wells are the minimum, but a few extras won't hurt either. And now for the brushes. You will need a shitty brush for mixing colors and good quality ones for painting. Go for Marta Kolinsky Sable ones. They don't have to be Winsor & Newton like those. They are great, but the cost is high. This is from Green Stuff World. It is a 00 silver line. It is like a needle, you will need something like this, and I paid 6 euros for it. Go on the Green Stuff World website, take the 1, 0 and the 00 brushes, and for about 20 euro you're set. Okay, time to paint something. The base coat. Ammo acrylics are quite tricky for base painting with a brush, so I opted for an airbrush application. And if you have more heads to do, it's even quicker that way. Burnt Sand was heavily thinned with Mr. Leveling and applied in thin coats. Thin coats are crucial, because you want a completely matte surface. And here is the result. Nice even matte surface. As we said, burnt sand was used. Let's take care of the worst part first, the eyes. This is what will happen. We have to fill the eye with off-white. We will probably end up with off-white all around. But this should not be a problem because we will correct the overpaint with burnt sand again, right? Well, let's see, said the blind man. As the name itself suggests, off-white, you start with a blob of pure white and knock it off with some basic skin tone. This was probably too white, but it will be the last of my problems. Then you have to thin it down to perfection. It should run nicely and cover perfectly. And talking about this is pointless. You have to try. A lot. Time to do some damage. Take the needle brush, load it, and then stop breathing, concentrate, and... Far too white, but okay. For the other eye, turn the head around, reload, stop breathing, concentrate, and... Even worse. Perfect. But we will fix things now, right? Not so simple. Again, you have to thin burnt sand to perfection, but with Ammo acrylics this is nearly impossible. Especially those from the skin tone set are like a paste out of the bottle, and I was trying hard, but the color was either not running at all, or running but not covering. And the final struggle, the black dots, which must not be dots at all but lines. I completely screwed up the eyes on those faces, so I will have to learn to do them decently before I can tell you how to do it. I did some retouchments on those off camera, but still, poor result, so next time we will talk about the eyes mostly. Let's go to the good part of this video. This is the color range that we will use for the skin tones. And if you are worried that the colors will dry out on the stiff palette, we will check the first highlight after 3 days. Add a drop of water and the color is as good as new, because I was covering the wells with masking tape. Now we have to prepare the base color well. Let's make a lot of it, because we will need it for both the highlights and the shadows. So, burnt sand, water, and mix it for good. Adding water in steps helps with the mixing. And finally, we have something like this. But the burnt sand is already on the faces, so let's go straight to the first highlight. Take a small amount of basic skin tone and mix it with some water. Now remix the base well and take about 1/3 of it to the first highlight well. And we have the tone. Add much more water, mix it thoroughly, and you should end up with something like this. I have this nice painting guide that I found online. I outlined the places where we'll be putting the first highlight. Always remix the well first and then unload the brush on the towel. And here we go. Put the paint on the exposed areas. And try to remember the procedure so it will become automatic. We will be touching the same parts, but in smaller areas. I applied the first highlight twice. And here is the result. Almost nothing, but it should be that way at the moment. We can move on to the second highlight, and the procedure is the same, except that now we have to add 1/2 of the first highlight well. And it will be like this for all the highlights. We should be applying the second highlight to smaller areas, pointing toward the maximum light, but the first was almost invisible to me, so I was pretty much retouching the same areas. Maybe the first highlight was too close to the base color, who knows. And here we are after 2 applications of the second highlight. Well, something barely noticeable is starting to happen, but we are not sure what we are doing. Here comes a great trick. It's time to switch to shadows. If you were thinking that the highlights were thin, well, this will be dirty water. For start, fill the well with water. Prepare a drop of burnt brown red aside. Mix the base well and add 2 brush loads to the water. And for the end, take a small amount of burnt brown red and mix the first shadow. The color, if we can call it that, is barely leaving a trace on the towel, and on paper we can't see much either. Again, our guide is here to help us because, as you saw for the highlights, I did not film every brush stroke. There are a lot of tutorials where painters are saying exactly where you should put the paint. I am showing you how the paint should be. So let's apply the first shadow. Under the neck, behind the ears, into the ears, under the lower lip, into the mouth, and under the nose. Those 2 lines are very important. Then you have to outline the nose. And don't forget the deep part around the eye. After 2 applications of the first shadow, you can see that something is starting to happen. And take a look at this one. The stage of painting is the same for all 4, but he is standing out big time. This is good sculpture. Let's quickly make the second shadow. 3/4 of the first shadow well, and again some burnt brown red. The color is still very thin, but stronger. This time I was really trying to paint the same spots as before, but on smaller areas. That way you will end up with nice transitions. And for the first time you can really see some changes. And the changes are also happening on my Patreon page. The team is getting bigger. My Patreons are very satisfied, and they are getting an article for every day of my work. Extra content just for them, they can write me, and they can post their work. Bottom line, this is an interactive magazine with a personal tutor for scale modeling. All this for about $5 per month. A big thank you to all of my Patreons. And you should be the next one. It's time for a highlight again. The third was made exactly like the previous one. And now everything is easier, because you can clearly see what you are doing. The spots are the same as for the second highlight, but now the areas are smaller. Also, this one was applied twice, but now you should start taking small breaks after each application. Leave the workshop for a minute or two, and when you are back, you will see things differently. See how the exposed areas are well visible now? This is exactly what we want. You can also take the faces to a different place with good daylight if you are working in the kind of mine, like I am, and you will see what you are doing. At this point, you should start applying a shadow after each highlight. So, shadow number 3 it is. This one is already quite strong, so I choose the needle brush, because until now I was using the Winsor & Newton 00 for all the work. Same story again. Look at the painting guide and try to paint smaller areas. This shadow was the only one that was applied only once, but this is not a rule. It was just my feeling that it was enough, because again it was quite strong. You can see how every brush stroke gives more depth to the face. I was looking at the results and I was thinking about applying another round of highlights and shadows, but then I took the faces in front of my house and took some photos. Look at this, totally different story. And it was time to stop. It would probably be better to reach this stage with 4 steps instead of 3, but okay. Now we just have to add some life to those faces. The eyebrows are the first step in adding life. Just take a dark brown color and draw 2 lines where they should be. Maybe it looks like an easy job, but it's not. I was worried I would ruin all the work, but then I looked to those eyes again and said, well, it can get worse than that. The result is far from good, but I was doing this for the first time. And the second, even more important step is adding some reddish hue to the lips and cheeks. I took some flat red and mixed it off with some basic skin tone. I was looking for a kind of rose or salmon tone. When I was happy with the color, I thinned it down a lot to obtain a kind of glaze. For the lips, you should apply it to all the visible parts. Do more applications if needed. And for the cheeks, you should go right under the strongest highlight, and even here, if you take a break after each application, you will know when to stop. You can see that I was rushing those final steps because I didn't know what I was doing. In the next tutorial about faces, we will concentrate on the eyes and on those final steps, I promise. But even with all those falls, I mean, if we compare those with this, well, a big step forward was made. Until the next one, stay healthy, stay cool, and put some glue on the styrene too. Bye.